Dance, live wiggle. Okay, I think we're live now, or we should be live everywhere. All right, so hello everyone, HP Hollow and Jacob Hollow back with you to celebrate the official launch of Monster Punk Horizon number 3 Excess. I'd say this has been one of the best launch days we've ever had, so thank you, readers. We love you. I mean, we loved you before, but we really love you now. So this is our launch party. So we are going to hang out, do some readings, say hey to everyone who comes in. We're also going to be doing a few different contests. And I think Nova has decided she's going to come visit. We were actually late starting because I was taking pictures of her. Oh, she's walking around. Oh, she's going into bed or something. I don't know. Nova's hanging out under the computer, so I'll pick her up. So she can say hi. Nova is still in her cone of shame because she had surgery a few weeks ago. And I think some of you know about this already, but Nova's adventure is that we found a little weird scabby thing on her ear that ended up being cancer, which sucks. Yeah. But luckily we found it early enough that the vet was able to remove it completely. Though the downside of that is that she had to remove Nova's entire right ear to do it. So she looks a little badass now, and we're going to have to figure out how to work that into book 4 of Monster Punk Horizon.
I'm sure we can think of something that will take off her ear.
Yeah, that's one benefit of writing a monster hunting series. Anyway, Nova is mad at everything because she hates this cone, but luckily it gets to come off tomorrow morning. So I'm going to hand her back to you so she can get cozy and ungrumpy. And yeah, all right. So, we already got 2 comments. All right. Hey, Derek. Derek is one of our super fans. Okay. So, yes, we love you, Derek. And all right. So, I have a comment post, and this comment is an important comment. So, for everyone viewing, are you done, Nova? Nova's down here scratching her cone, and it's so loud in our room. All right. So, we're running the contest a little differently in that instead of going by comments, I have this little form for you guys to fill out if you want to enter. And okay, Nova, you got to stop that. You know what? We're going to be nice. And she's leaving anyway. You out, girl? She's getting stuck on stuff. Okay, bye, Nova. She'll be back. Okay. Let's see here. I will start talking again. Okay, so contests are going to be run similarly to my previous contest. I got so many buttons to click on this screen. All right, so contest number 1. So anyone who enters on the form will be entered to win a signed copy of Excess, which I will mail to you. The form will ask for like your first name and email address and mailing address. And it's just, I realized during our last launch party that some of the services I stream to don't actually have contact functions. And so people from those services couldn't win unless I happened to know them on other services, which luckily I did, most people. But this is just an easier way to guarantee that everyone who actually wants to win something gets a chance to. Hi, Joel. And so, yeah, that was an adventure. But we're also doing the other contest that I run during these launch parties, where if you have already bought Excess, I love you. But if you send me your Amazon confirmation number on this form as like proof that you bought it, you will be entered into an additional contest where you can win. This time it's going to be 1 book by each of us. I'm giving away signed copies of The Wizard's Way, which is another one by both of us that I took the lead on, and one of Jacob's books, Bane of the Dead, which is fun giant robots in space punching each other with drama. So so anyone who has already bought Excess and enters on that form with their confirmation number will also win both of those signed and whatnot. And I'm getting an error message from Facebook. Okay, I'm going to try posting my comment again. We're having a crazy night over here. We started late because I was taking pictures of Nova. And all right, so the contest went through that time. All right, the link went through. So tons of comments, tons of things. All right. Hey, Joel, did I already say hey to you? I don't even know what I'm doing.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
It's okay. It's all right. I know you're excited about getting now a trilogy.
For
released.
additional context, both of us made the fun discovery this week that we're allergic to a new laundry detergent that I'm trying, and we are both itchy as heck and half asleep on Benadryl right now. So it's going to be an interesting night.
I have never been this itchy in my entire life.
I know, and Nova's been crazy itchy this week too. So we're just everybody's itchy and everybody's miserable, and so we're just anyway.
We're doing the best we can here.
We are. It's a struggle. All right. So anyway, what we're gonna do is, I guess, just do a little bit chatting about how this particular book came to be, because it's a weird one. Or weirder one in the Monster Punk Horizon universe.
They're all weird.
And we've got a few little readings we're going to do. And if you've seen the previous videos we posted this week, you've already heard some of this, so bear with us. This is for the new people. But I guess we'll just start by saying how it came about. And since that's more of a you thing, would you like to describe that?
So I was editing. Basically reading through and editing Monster Punk Horizon, the first book in the series, and I was really enjoying it. I was really enjoying the world that you had created. I really liked the two leads and the Cadians and Nova and I was kind of in between projects. So I'm like, hey, Heather. What if I were to write a book in this series? Would you be okay with that? And your answer was,
yeah. Less work for me to do. Yes.
So I actually
there are really big perks to being married to other writers, and one of the biggest ones is they can write in your series, so you don't have to write them.
We can push out more content. But so I put together a kind of rough little outline, which you reviewed and you okayed. And then I kind of just chugged out the first draft pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
There were a few parts where I was like, hey, Heather, this is a scene that I think is more appropriate for you to write, or hey, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do here lore-wise. Just fill in something for me. But most of it, about three quarters, I think, of the final product, was written, and then I turned it over to you, and you, I think, around that time, you were finishing the final draft of book one. Yeah. So book two.
Didn't even exist before book three was written.
Yeah, but book three, the first draft of book three happened before.
Dave is another of our super fans.
Okay. So. Okay. I'm getting the impression that people.
I know these people.
So book two was just this twinkle in your eye at this point, and so then you wrote book two, and then you started working on book three. First of all, reviewing what I had written, and one of the things that you said is that one of the characters, I think it's Dwayne.
I love Dwayne. Yes.
You said that my portrayal of Dwayne was not accurate to how you portrayed him in book two, which my response was, book two didn't even exist when I was writing this. Please just go ahead and fix it however you want.
Oh, hey, Reese. Reese is another of our super fans. You know him as Chris in real life. So okay. I have to remind Jacob who we know and who we don't know, because I'm of the two of us. Jacob does writing, and I handle our entire online presence. And
I try not to social media if I can help it. I don't.
I'm the social media butterfly. Oh, Derek, you're good. I know you pre-ordered. I'm the one who ships everything from our personal website, so I know you. You are all good. You were entered for the second contest before this video even started.
Yeah, my occasional interactions with contest winners are you'll walk over to me. He's like, "Hey, Jacob, sign this book."
Yeah. Read this email. I forward everything to Jacob, and
It's like, okay, am I signing this to someone's name? It's like the sticker. I put the sticker on. It's like, okay.
The closest Jacob comes to getting on Facebook is looking over my shoulder when I snort at memes on my phone. Like, I think occasionally you might get on to order comics from our local comic shop and stuff like that. I can't recall the last time I saw you touch social media.
I do occasionally use Facebook to communicate with our local comic book store. But that's...
I can hear Nova scratching from across the house.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, the cone of shame comes off tomorrow.
Yeah,
so.
Hopefully the microphone is not picking it up. Someone let me know if there's weird noises coming through.
There's nothing we can really do about it.
I'm just like,
the cat's itchy. The cat is going to scratch.
Yeah, she'll go under the bed and scratch or something. So
there was actually... I told you this what Nova had done earlier today, but I think it's
you're going to get Nova stories tonight. Just
funny little Nova story. So she has this cone of shame, and she's a fairly light cat.
Yes, I know the story.
Yeah, and so she was scratching at the cone, and then she did this really fierce head shake. And something about the this like centripetal forces or something of the cone caused her front paws to be lifted off the ground, where she like staggered backwards on her hind legs before she planted her feet back up. She actually like moved the cone so much that she lifted herself half off the ground by doing that.
I did not see that, but I wish I had. Yeah, Nova's having drama. Her cone was supposed to come off on Monday, but it didn't after she went to the vet. And she's just been kind of lurking around the house. Like, I guess this is my life now.
Well, we had hoped that the cone would come off earlier in the week, but the vet said, hey, a few more days. We're going to put a little bit of surgical glue just to make sure everything holds together nicely. Because we don't want the cat to go through any more than she's already gone through.
We should probably get back to talking about the book at some point.
Yes.
All right, so we've got readings to you. Do you want to do your reading first, or you want me to do mine first?
Which scene were you going to read?
Mine happens before yours, so I guess I could read mine first.
But which scene?
I'm reading the card one.
Card one.
Sure.
Why don't you do yours first?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to do our first reading, and the scene that I'm reading from is in the middle of the book. Now the premise of Excess, if you don't know, is that Pix wants to repair her capacitor blade, and she needs specific materials from a monster known as the Zessian to go to do this. And while they're out hunting the Zessian, they meet up with Kildester and Dwayne and Kaito, and they just form a big mega party, and they decide to go after it. And so they've been hunting, and they're settling down to camp for the night. After part of their hunt goes disastrously, I think that seems to be how the story goes.
So just to add a little bit there. So Pix's weapon is a capacitor blade, and it has this spell glass rod in the middle of it that the blade can open up, and it can then discharge mysteric.
You coming back?
She's thinking about coming back.
Mysteric
energy.
Her head is stuck.
So the spell glass rod is cracked, and it's degrading, basically from all of the action that was taking place in books 1 and 2.
Yeah.
See, you let her in, and now she's just making noise.
I'm gonna hold her and give her scratches.
Okay.
Come here, baby.
So instead of purchasing a new spell glass rod, which
is expensive,
and Pix and Jazz are pretty close to flat broke.
Yep.
They're going to go out and they're going to get the materials so that they can then give those materials to a weapons shop and have them craft the materials for much cheaper than if they were to try to buy. At least that is the plan. Unfortunately, the Zessian is one mean customer.
Yep.
A lot of ways to slice and dice hunters.
Yep.
So.
Oh, I guess you need to hold the cat now so I can read.
Yes, because.
There you go. Hold the baby. Give her scratches.
Yes, I will. I'll give her scratches.
Okay. I'm starting now. And do I want to? I'll talk more about it after I read. All right. Kilvester led them to the mentioned place, a pedestal of stone that jutted out of a ragged cliffside. It took some climbing to get to, but it was far enough below the next ridge on the cliff that nothing was likely to jump down on them in the night, except maybe a creature that was eager to go splat after a long fall. Dwayne set to building a fire from some dry sticks and kindling he'd thought to gather along the way, while Kilvester and Kaito started laying out bedrolls they'd brought. Pix laid out her bedroll too, a simple, practical thing she'd found in the Monster Market thrift shop. She'd brought a tent as well, but the night was cloudless and she didn't smell rain on the air, and she'd save a little time in the morning not having to pack the thing up. So she decided to enjoy the sky and company. She turned to Jazz, who was currently getting cozy against a small, inclined rock formation. "Forget your bedroll?" she asked. "Sleep is for mainlanders," Jazz replied, taking a random bug in her hand and letting it crawl all over her arm as if she expected it to keep her entertained all night, which, knowing Jazz, it probably would. "No, sleep is for well-prepared hunters who want to live through the next day," Sacha grumped, surveying a pile of rocks on the other side of the ledge. "Bedrolls are for mainlanders. You wondrous continent natives are too spoiled and soft. My generation was born and bred here, and we learned to make do with rocks for pillows." He picked out what he must have considered a good rock and nodded his approval, and when Pix looked at it, she noticed that it did have a pleasant, vaguely ergonomic shape. But it was still a rock, and the sight of it suddenly reminded her that she'd forgotten something. "Ugh, I was so eager to leave, I left my pillow drying on the clothesline," she muttered to herself. She could use her gambizon for a pillow, she supposed, but even though she was wearing a tank top underneath, she felt uneasy revealing it around anyone but Jazz. Or, now that she considered it, one person in particular. Dwayne never bothered her, and Kaito was already engaged, or at least had been on the other side of the portals. But the sight of Kilvester rooting through his pack in the firelight sent an unexpected twinge of anxiety through her, if pleasant anxiety. She'd been mildly jealous, after all, when he'd tried to flirt with Jazz all those weeks ago, and now there was something about the way the firelight glinted off the sweat drying on his bare, bulging muscles. She put it out of mind and decided to keep her gambizon on. She'd sleep on her pack instead. "I brought my tent," Nova boasted, zipping her backpack open. "My Gram said a good catient is always prepared, and my sister Ariel said they're good for camping out before card raids." "Card raids?" Kaito asked. He looked up from where he'd been sharpening his longsword. "When she goes to buy Monster Punk cards," Nova chimed happily. "She and Oscar said it's good to arrive a few days before to stake out the area because the card shops put up barriers and change them every release to keep the raiders on their toes." "Wait, do you mean trading cards?" Dwayne asked, suddenly attentive. "Yep. So there's a monster trading card game here." "Yep." "F," Dwayne shouted. "I'm censoring for Facebook purposes." Though the way he said it made it sound like a yeah! Nova still glared at him. "Oop. Sorry," he apologized. "It's just that I was huge into trading card games back home. There were like 3 different monster series, imaginary monsters, not like these, and I collected effing all of them, and I was 1 card away from finishing my first edition Shadowless set when I fell through the portals." "First edition Shadowless?" Pix asked. "The first run of this particular set was printed without a shadow behind the monster pictures," Dwayne explained, looking as if he was about to vibrate through the ground with enthusiasm. "They're super exciting to find." Pix waited for more explanation, confused. "Because they're really rare," Dwayne clarified. "Oh, okay," Pix said, getting it, but also not getting it. "So card collecting is big here too, then?" Kaito asked, also suddenly interested. Dwayne must have recognized that particular brand of enthusiasm because he turned like he'd just found a new brother and said, "You collect too?" "I did as a kid," Kaito replied. "Our version, at least. But I gave away all my cards like a dumbass, and then when I realized how much they were actually worth years later, I was too traumatized to get back into the game." "I wanted to open an effing card shop," Dwayne said, and then turned back to Nova. "Sorry. Tell me more about these cards. So, there are fights over them? How's the game work? Are the fights part of the game?" Nova promptly abandoned her tent setup to root through her Radiant Centillion backpack and pull out a little tin, also with the cartoony Radiant Centillion on it. "I can show you," she said gleefully, and bounded to teach her new disciples. "Wait, is it a good idea to have those on a hunt?" Kaito asked, looking at the tin like he could see the money potentially bleeding from it as it was chomped in the mouth of a monster. "Oh, these are my duplicate cards," Nova replied. "My mom doesn't let us take the main collection out of the house. It's a family rule." Kaito sighed in relief, and then he and Dwayne listened with rapt interest as Nova walked them through the basics of the game. Meanwhile, Kylvester looked at Pix like he too was in the presence of a kindred spirit, though in the opposite direction. "I'd rather fight real monsters than fight people for pieces of paper with cartoon monsters on them," he said. Pix wanted to reply with something of the same, but then the fire flashed off his muscles again, and whatever she'd planned to say came out blah blah. "One of my sisters and I had a falling out over a bleba card," Jazz interjected mercifully. "I mean, we were 10 at the time, but she's still kind of a snot, so I used the card as an excuse not to talk to her." Now Kylvester looked at Jazz with another expression that Pix also related to, but frankly the distraction had taken Kylvester's attention off her embarrassing gibberish mishap, so she didn't mind Jazz's stupidity just this once. "I'll take the first watch," Pix offered, hoping to pull his attention further off the gaff. No one objected, and soon the others had all partaken of some jerky and fallen asleep, though Nova, Dwayne, and Kaito had taken some convincing to actually go to sleep, and now Pix knew more about the ethical controversies surrounding the weighing of booster packs, whatever that meant, than she ever thought could possibly be relevant. Now, finally, Pix sat up alone by the fire, listening to a complex symphony of snores, even Jazz's, which ironically had been the one to start them all. Her eyes threatened to droop too, so she decided to do some idle maintenance to keep herself awake. And that is the end of my section. You can tell what hobby I was getting back into when I wrote this scene. Yeah, one of the funny things about, oops, I'm knocking everything over here. One of the funny things about the Monster Punk series is it's like, obviously it's inspired by Pokemon and Digimon and all the stuff I loved as a kid. But even though I have enjoyed all of those properties like my entire life, I really fell out of the card collecting aspect of it. I collected the cards as a kid, and just kind of as I got into high school and whatnot, I just lost complete interest. And then I want to say sometime during the pandemic, Jacob showed me this one random article about how crazy the Pokemon card market was getting.
Yeah, it's my fault.
I think it was around the time that like Logan Paul or something said that he was going to like buy up all the base set stuff that he could get, and then suddenly all the prices started skyrocketing and stuff or something. It was some crazy YouTube related thing that kicked it all off. Anyway, so I was like, you know what? My Pokemon cards have been sitting in a binder for 10 years and I haven't even looked at them. I'm going to see if I can sell some of them. And so I go on eBay and start doing the research on what cards I have and what they're worth and all this stuff. And I start the week wanting to sell off all my cards, and I end the week falling back hard into the hobby. Like you would find me on eBay in the middle of the night, like sneaking auctions, and we had to put an auction limitation on me.
I remember.
And so, but it was really fascinating to me to come. Well, the thing is, like, when there's a difference between collecting Pokemon cards as a kid and collecting Pokemon cards as an adult. Because as a kid, I was like, oh, I like the pictures. I like the shininess. I like the monsters. But as an adult, like, discovering these other branches of card collecting culture was absolutely fascinating to me. And the Shadowless set reference in the book is a direct reference to the Shadowless Pokemon sets, because that was a set. The initial print of the Pokemon base set didn't have a shadow behind the cards, and so it's really uncommon to find, and it's a thing that I didn't even know existed.
Was it a Shadowless card that I got you for your birthday?
Yeah, no, Jacob got me. I collect Pikachu cards, and Jacob got me a Shadowless Pikachu for our anniversary. As an anniversary gift.
Yes.
So yeah. And so I just learning that the Shadowless set existed was really cool. And learning about what makes certain cards valuable and what makes certain sets more valuable than others and things like that. And then there's like a whole culture of Pokemon investing too, like people who will specifically buy certain sets with the intent of hoping they rise in value. Oh, I told you she would do it.
The one piece of paper.
I put that piece of paper on the bed and told Jacob that when Nova gets bored, she will go onto the bed and she will sit on the single piece of paper that is on the bed because she likes crackly noises. And I was curious to see how long it would take her to do that. But I win. And we should have bet on it so I could have won something. But anyway. Oh, hey, Richard. You were just messaging me. Oh. I did not get the message. But you can leave it in the comments or mail it or email it to me or whatever. But hello, and I will read it. I forgot what I was talking about.
You were talking about Nova.
No, I was talking about Nova, and then before I was talking about cards.
Talking about cards.
All right, but yeah, and so that there was a period where I stopped writing for like 2 weeks because of card enthusiasm. Like I was wholeheartedly into it. I was looking up card shows that were happening locally, and it was just, it went crazy. But then there was another branch of it where I found out I collected Digimon cards as a kid too. And that game, the original version of that game did not last. But in the course of reading about, of getting back into Pokemon card collecting, I discovered that there was a new version of the Digimon card game that started early this year. And so I'm like, you know what? These cards are kind of cool. And I was speaking to someone at one of our local comic shops, and they were talking about how well designed the game was. And I'm like, oh, Jacob likes well-designed games.
I do.
If I get him playing this game, I can use it as an excuse to buy more Digimon cards. And so I get Jacob into the game, and he starts looking at the rules, and he's like, oh, this is kind of cool. And so, yeah, and so I get Jacob into Digimon, and now Jacob...
So first of all, you know, you asked if, you know, I would be interested in playing with you. And you know, of course, I like games, and I like playing games with my wife. So I'm like, yeah, sure. Send me some information. You had mentioned that there were different colors that corresponded to different play styles. I'm like looking through them, and I eventually came across purple, which has recursion, you know, playing stuff from your graveyard, or Digimon calls it trash. And I'm like, oh, this is. And also in terms of the artwork, it's kind of like the villains of the franchise, and I'm like, ooh,
you do love your villains.
I do. And so I'm like, yeah, this sounds good. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, you know, Digimon, you know, it's like Pokemon in terms of like the art aesthetic. And then I'm like doing some searching about purple decks. And I was quickly reminded that in terms of art aesthetics, that Digimon, monsters in Digimon, some monsters in Digimon have a much wider palette to choose from, I guess, because you have like the cute monsters, and then you have like T-Rexes with shoulder-mounted rocket launchers.
And then there's one that's like literally half dragon, half bulldozer. Like, it's one of my favorite cards. Like, I freaking love it.
And then you also have, you know, very attractive females.
Oh yeah, it's not a wide selection. It's a like thick selection.
And I'm like, look at this. It's like, this is way better than Pokemon.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got into that card game together.
Yeah, and I think the funny thing is, like, I tried to show you the original Digimon series that I grew up with, and I think we made it maybe 7 episodes in, and you were like, I can't do it anymore. I can't. And we're just completely indifferent to Digimon. And now that we've started the game, I think you might actually be a bigger Digimon fan than me. And that's saying something. And now it's more of the game. But, I mean, I come in and find you watching Digimon card game videos all the time. Yeah. And so it's...
guilty as charged.
All that said, when I fell so heavily into card collecting, especially given the connection it had to the monster properties that inspired this novel or this series, I had to put card collecting into it. And especially since too, it's Monster Punk Horizon is a ridiculous series, and the card collecting community, to a certain extent, is very ridiculous in and of itself. Like, I just, with referring specifically to the lengths some people will go to get the cards they're looking for. Like we've all heard about the people who were like running on McDonald's and buying up like 60 Happy Meals at a time to try to get the Pokemon cards from that. And like I have one of my cousins actually works at the local Target, and there was a period where they would like it was mostly scalpers, I think, but people would figure out when the card delivery was coming in, and they would line up before the store opened, and people would try to bribe him. Like a guy offered him $100 to give him an extra pack of cards. And it's just the absolute ridiculousness of that element of the culture. Just I had to somehow pay reference to it, and I'm pretty sure card collecting is going to pop up in a major way somehow later in the series. I haven't articulated it yet. Dwayne might get his card shop. I've got to do some thinking on that, but I love the sort of the ridiculousness of it, and the fact that people have done actual raids to get cards.
Yeah, because you have the you have the reference to an incident in the Hell Pits.
Yes, if you listen to chapter 1, the video, I think it was posted yesterday, the day before, you will see this reference, which I think you're about.
Word of the 25th anniversary special promo war had reached as far as Skull Harbor.
There's a certain group of characters called the Demon Fae who are of the people in this setting who are into card collecting. They are the hardcorest. And they're going to be. I think we're actually going to meet the Demon Fae in the next book. I'm still outlining it, but they're going to be a fun group to write about. But yeah, so this is one of the ways in which my sort of external hobbies worm their way into my writing, which I think that's everything that surrounds me worms its way into my writing. Like there are so many elements of my writing that come down to objects that are laying around me at the time when I'm writing. Like literally, I think Dwayne's character actually came about because I needed a filler character, and I was listening to metal at the time. And I like bats, and there was like a plush bat toy or something around, like something bats was happening.
That sounds like how you would create a character.
I was just like, okay, we're gonna make a bat-like character who loves metal. There we go.
And swears a lot.
We got Dwayne, and that's so, it's like if you ever want to influence my writing, just put interesting objects around me.
Who's a fruit bat, but where he comes from.
Well, it depends upon the context and how you're defining fruit.
Because meat grows on trees where he comes from.
Yeah, he's a complicated character. You look like you want to do your reading now.
I could.
Okay,
I could.
Let's do it.
Do you?
Yeah, go for it.
This is all right. So this is a little over halfway through the book. They've met the Zessian in battle for the first time. Things did not go well. There are multiple complicating factors that have also shown up.
Things did not go well. It was like a summary of all our characters' experiences.
They just sort of fumble their way through the books, somehow surviving. Anyway, they're kind of regrouping, licking their wounds, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so Pix is sort of contemplating what the next step should be. The camp fell silent for long, uncomfortable moments. Pix was a planner by nature. She was the kind of person who would make detailed lists of the day's activities, and one of the items on that list would invariably be make a list for tomorrow. They knew a lot about the kerfuffle between the three monsters, but she felt no closer to a plan of action, and the lack of a defined next step ate at her. Was this mess too big for them? Were they in over their heads? Was the only sensible course of action to head back to Skull Harbor, report their findings to the chief researcher, and let a team of more seasoned hunters deal with this twisted love triangle? I guess that's a little bit of a spoiler there. Pix glanced down at her capacitor blade. It wasn't a useless weapon if the spell glass broke. The blade cut up most monsters just fine. The The weapon's mysteric discharge was helpful in so many ways, but it wasn't necessary. Maybe hunting a Zessian was a case of her reach exceeding her grasp. Just like that time, they thought they were ready for the hell pits, and then weren't. Pix shuddered to think of how that could have ended if the Demon Fae hadn't shown up, and wondered if this quest might end up the same way, even with the rest of the party's help. She didn't want to risk all of them just for a new weapon. She and Jazz could scrape by without the spell glass, taking on lesser, easier hunts to make ends meet. Yeah, better safe than sorry. Slow and steady, right? Perhaps it was finally time to admit she was in over her head. Pix glanced up, straight into Jazz's uncomfortably close face. I know that look. Jazz placed a pair of firm hands on Pix's shoulders, and I know enough not to like it. What look? Pix asked coyly. This one. Jazz poked her in the forehead. I'm not making a look. Pix deflected. Oh, yes, you are. And next you're going to tell us we should pack up our bags and head back home, because this one's too much for us. I wasn't going to. Pix began reflexively, then trailed off because it was true. Don't give me that dung. I know you too well to buy that line. Jazz stood up and spread her arms. You tell us that safety is your middle name. You're Taylor Safety Weaver, and you'll be skydamned if you're going to lead your friends into danger. Actually, my middle name is... And then you'll spout on about how we're not up to the challenge. Jazz turned in a circle, eyeing each hunter and Catiant in turn. How we should just give up and slink back to Skull Harbor like the noobs we are. Hey, I wouldn't word it like that. But you forgot one thing. Jazz held up a finger, now glaring down at Pix. What's that? That my middle name is Seize the Day. No, it's not. I was born Jaspertina Seize the Day Red. No, you weren't. Don't let the truth get in the way of this, because I won't. And I plan to live up to the esteemed heritage of my middle name.
Such a Jazz line.
That you just made up. Yes, because luck isn't something handed to you on a platter. People say this guy or that gal is lucky, but they're wrong. We ran a whole experiment last month and found that even Kaito, with his exceptional human luck, only has it in very specific circumstances and has to work for it the rest of the time. That wasn't anything close to a complete experiment, Kaito objected. Doesn't matter. Point is, we make our own luck here, and we do so by being smart enough to recognize the opportunity and brave enough to seize it. Are you even listening to us anymore? Pix asked. And that's what we have right here, Jazz continued. This isn't a problem, it's an opportunity. And we need to have the courage to reach out our hand. Jazz extended her arm in sync with her words. And then crush opportunity's balls in our fist until tears of good fortune leak from his bulging eye sockets. That's who the Dragon Pig Pirates are. When destiny knocks, we kick down the door. Nova started clapping, and Sasha wiped a small tear out from under an eye. Jazz took a bow. Ugh, Pix groaned, hanging her head. Fine.
I'm so proud of you. That was such a Jazz scene. And the funny thing about it is Jacob doesn't like writing Jazz, which is kind of offensive considering that Jazz is based on his wife, but that's a discussion for another time.
I didn't say that I didn't like writing Jazz. I prefer to write Pix. I think I just get into the headspace of Pix more easily than I do with Jazz. But
Jazz is a hard character for you to write because you're not as big an idiot as me. Not to say that I'm an idiot all the time.
Put it like that.
I'm like a cool idiot, not like the kind that will make dumb mistakes and end the world. You know.
She is.
It's hard for you to harness her chaos.
she's a very hyper character, and I think that's generally the aspect of the character that I kind of, I wouldn't even say struggle with, but it's just a little bit
at all. Like
a little bit challenging for me to kind of get into that character's mind, because she's just bouncing off the walls all the time,
Yeah. Whereas when you get excited, it happens in little poofs. Like it's like, oh, this good thing happened. Okay, I'm normal now. Whereas if I'm excited about something, for days. But that's one thing that I really like about this particular book, though, and I think I said this in one of our earlier videos, is that you get a different kind of story when someone writes from Pix's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though the series has an ensemble cast, I feel like for the first 2 books, because of the way I like to write, Jazz was very much the perspective character. Whereas in this book, it shifts to Pix as the perspective character, just because you like writing her more. And so you get a slightly different kind of story that still has that sort of Monster Punk Horizon madness, but it's viewed through a much more, I guess, sensible lens.
Another thing that kind of occurs to me about our writing styles and our approaches to this series, while I'm editing your work, I think probably my most common comment is please tone down Jazz in this scene. You have gone too far.
Jazz, you would not believe it looking at the finished work. Jazz has been toned down quite a bit.
I'm like, I understand what you're trying to do with this scene, Heather. You need to bring it back a little bit, I think.
Rough draft versions of Jazz are just complete pandemonium. Like, they're super fun, but at the end of it, even I realize that I've got to pull her back a little bit so the story can actually happen and happen reasonably. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but that is one cool thing that I really like about this book. And whenever, it's one thing that I look forward to about the books in general that you're going to write, because you have, as a writer, like, I consider us both very adept writers, but we both have very different skill sets, and it makes for an interesting variety. Like, I really want you to write a police procedural in this universe. Like, okay, so Jacob's. Oh, I got to tell you guys, this is okay. Well, it's a fun part of the writing experience that we never really expected to happen. So when Jacob started out writing, he did mostly military sci-fi, hard sci-fi.
Lots of action, lots of stuff exploding. I mean, yeah, you have the military sci-fi with the Dragons of Jupiter, and there were other things that I had written along those lines that are in the writing trunk right now, that haven't been published. And there were, there's of course the Seraphim Revival, which
giant robots punching stuff.
I would not call that military science fiction. It's science fantasy.
It's science fantasy. They're robots fueled by souls. Though I will say, one of my absolute favorite reviews that we've ever gotten was someone who complained about the accuracy of the science in our series about giant robots fighting in space fueled by human souls. Like,
I am sorry, sir, that you
expect. I love it.
I am sorry, sir, that you failed to realize that it is essentially a magic system that is encased in science fiction terminology. They are fueled by souls. There is no physics that I can draw upon to explain this.
There's only one bad review that I love more than that bad review, and I can't remember which author got it. And I'm pretty sure the person posted it mistakenly, but someone got really mad at one book for not being a case of sausages. And, like, my goal in life is to get a bad review that is just someone mad at my book because it's not a case of breakfast meats. Like, I love, sometimes bad reviews are great. Like, don't spam me with bad reviews, but sometimes bad reviews are a great source of hilarity, and I love them.
Well, getting back to Jazz and Pix, and writing Jazz as a character, one of the things that, you know, I strove for as going through your work and you know, adding my editorial comments was to, you know, keep
I had my fingers crossed, so I remember to talk about police procedurals again.
Okay, it was to keep you know, I found in some scenes where she went too far, where I felt that she was like too hyper, that she wasn't an enjoyable character to like root for. And by kind of bringing that back just a hair, because she still is a pretty hyper character, I think that, you know, the goal was to retain her likability and to you know, retain the feeling that this is a character that the reader wants to root for, even if she can sometimes make some dumb mistakes.
Oh yeah, and I fully, like, even though I like hyper characters, I fully understand that, because there's sometimes when I'm watching anime especially, and we get that really, really hyperactive character, and I'm watching the show like, when does this character die? Like, when?
Yeah,
I need this to happen. I spent most of Demon Slayer wanting the one yellow guy to die. I don't even remember his name. And it's not that even that he was hyper, he was just annoying.
Detective Stories.
Okay, yes, Detective Stories. I can rant all day about that one character. Like, I never actively root for anime characters to die, but I was so ready for him to die. I don't think he actually dies, though. Anyway, okay, so back to our original topic. We're off on tangents again. So Jacob primarily wrote sci-fi stuff. And then came time to, you wrote the Gordian Protocol and the Valkyrie Protocol with David Weber, which was still hard sci-fi. But one of David's initial visions for that particular storyline was for it basically to be sort of time cop, time travel, police procedural stuff. And so David and Jacob were talking about this. And I can't remember who recommended the Ed McBain books to you. Was that
was Tony Weisskopf,
the head publisher of Bain?
Yes.
So they were chatting about this, and Jacob was like, "I've never written a book like this before, so I need some guidance." And so Tony Weisskopf told him to read a bunch of books by Ed McBain, who is like one of the premier police procedural writers. And Jacob starts reading them and writes and uses what he learns from those books to write the first book in what is going to be I've been calling it Gordian Protocol 3 for shorthand, but it's really going to be a sort of a starter for an offshoot series coming out next year. Is it the Janus File? I lose track of which.
The Janus
File
is
still,
what it's going to be named.
It's
still part of the Gordian Division series, but it's essentially different, a separate track than the main track.
Yeah. And so you wrote that, and he's working on like book 3 right now or something. So I lose track of what's actually out and what's actually being written. But anyway, over the course of that, Jacob figured out that he really, really likes writing police procedurals, which is not something he ever expected to enjoy. And it's still like it's time travel police procedural, so there's still sci-fi craziness that goes on, especially in the kind of setting that you and David invented for the Gordian series. But that was a really fun discovery for both of us to make. And I started thinking, like, Jacob mentioned that he liked writing police procedurals, and I was throwing around ideas for potential Monster Punk books, and I was like, you know what? There's a Detective Pikachu movie. And I could do a monster detective storyline. I could write a monster detective storyline. Or Jacob could use his newfound police procedural writing skills to do the Monster Punk equivalent of Detective Pikachu.
Now we've talked about
obviously it wouldn't be the same storyline, but
we've talked about the next book that I want to write in Monster Punk.
Which actually leads me into the topic I wanted to end the discussion or in the launch party with. My phone just went off. I'm just getting memes. Okay. But so what's next for the Monster Punk series? And because obviously we don't have book 4 scheduled right now. And frankly, a lot could be next or a little could be next. When it comes down to it, it's got to sell well, so please buy all my books. But anyway, so when I initially conceived of the Monster Punk Horizon series, I envisioned it as an anthology-style series, kind of like Discworld, where I would have a set of characters and a set of maybe settings and whatnot, and I could set stories infinitely in that world. So there will be individual sagas or arcs, but there's not one massive Wheel of Time style story that is planned. I basically designed the series so that I could take whatever nerd thing I'm interested in at the time and write a book parody of it, or somehow combine things like that. So I mean, it could go on forever.
I mean, you do plan to close out the Screecher arc.
Yeah, there's going to be more Screecher, and he's a fun monster to write. Like when I first invented the Screecher, I really just wanted, like, I like bugs and I like dragons, so I just wanted to write a dragon bug. And I think at that time I was fighting Shara Ishvalda. Like, Shara Ishvalda had come out in Monster Punk World, Monster
Hunter World Iceborne.
And I remember being really enamored with that monster because it was unlike any other monster that I'd really fought in the series at that point. And it makes noise, and I like noise, and it's really scary noise. And so I made it scream, because I made the Screecher, like his iconic attack is a screech because of Shara Ishvalda. And I really loved that character. And then with his ability to take on the facets of his environment and of monsters and gems that he eats, he's a really versatile villain, and I really like writing about him. And so there's going to be something of an arc with the Screecher, but I structured the series so that we could have side stories like Excess. And so I've got a sheet in front of me that has right now up to, like, I think there's 21, 22 novels planned. Some of them are really more short stories, but
those are concepts.
Well, concepts. But then I've also got, like, should this initial series do well, I actually have an alternate series plan that takes place on the Wondrous Continent. That one of the it's not really a flaw. One of the things I ended up disappointing myself with about Monster Punk Horizon was my decision to not make electronics work, which I think was, whenever things fall from the sky, fall through the dazzling skies, if they're electronic, they just cease to work. And it was sort of a necessary thing for the structure, for the functioning of my story, but it also prevented me from doing Digimon references, because you can't have digital monsters when there's no digital infrastructure.
Your world has no internet.
And so it
can't have an internet.
I do have, however, Kaito is a super nerd, and I do have a concept for an offshoot series called Monster Punk Online, where I believe the first sentence of it is something equivalent to it all started when Kaito invented the internet, and as the internet does, it got weird. And then there's the Digimon Digital Monsters parody. There's all of the insert words here, online lit RPG references and MMO references and all sorts of crazy things I can do there. So I've also got a concept for another one that is like monster themed giant robots, which I'm still conceptualizing, but the possibilities are infinite.
This is typical of our discussions.
Yeah.
Heather thinks big. Heather dreams big. Heather conceptualizes big.
Yeah.
My plans for this series, I've come up with the story that I want to write next. It's going to be, Monster Punk Horizon Infiltrator. And it involves essentially a shape-shifting creature that has fallen from the dazzling skies, and through jazz earworm hijinks and basically absorbs parts of the personalities of both Jazz and Pix, and as such becomes very, very confused.
Yes.
And so yeah, it's that's kind of the underlying concept, and this shapeshifter that is either impersonating Jazz or Pix is up to no good. And it doesn't even know why it's doing it anymore. It's just really confused.
Yes. And then one of them that I'm definitely going to write, and I floated this idea before and it's gotten such good responses. One of the books coming up is basically going to be Food Wars meets Monster Hunter. I'm still working on the specifics of that storyline, but basically there is a monster hunting / food competition, and the food references go crazy in it. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with that one. And then,
if you thought that the food descriptions in the existing books were lavish, I think you haven't seen anything yet.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have fun designing the dishes for that one. I think that might actually be book 5, because in some of the books, like even though I say
which one were you planning for book 4?
Book 4, I'm still working on, because the thing about like in the first 3 books, you get I drop these little nuggets of mysteries that exist within the world. For example, why can't they go back through the portals? How exactly did this world happen? And like all sorts of little things. And there's frequent references to them. And some of them I just kind of threw in because I was excited and liked the idea. And at 3 books in, I kind of got to figure out where I'm going to go with those. And so book 4,
which you have.
Oh yeah, I
have.
have.
You have.
But you know,
there is lore behind all this.
Oh yeah, we've got like a 50-page series Bible at this point. I think that just lists all the monsters and whatnot.
Yeah,
but I was kind of waiting, like from my business marketing numbers author half, basically wanted to see how the first 3 books did to determine how long I would take to wrap up certain aspects of the world, because obviously, like if the series doesn't sell, you got to wrap it up quickly. And so just so that the people who do enjoy it get a coherent end. But obviously longer series allow me more time to play around with things. But anyway, I lost my train of thought. But what I plan to do in book 4, I plan for book 4 to begin to poke at some of those mysteries a little more. Jazz is after procrastinating on it for 3 books, finally going to get into her earworm research, and they end up discovering some fascinating things. I
think this is if memory serves, this is the one we were talking about doing some of the monster design, working on the monster designs collaboratively.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But
we got some crazy monsters for this one.
I've also wanted to write a sort of Lovecraftian inspired story as well, just because I really like there's that iconic opening line from, I want to say, Call of Cthulhu, where it's like we exist on ignorant shores, and we were not meant to venture far. So I can't remember
describing the smallness.
Yeah, like describing the smallness of
race.
it. And man, I wish I could remember the exact sentence now. I always mix it up, but it's basically my first line for that story is an inversion of that. It's like, yeah, they existed on these small ignorant shores, but they were MFing monster hunters. So, but yeah, so there's going to be a sort of Lovecraft inspired story where this sort of Cthulhu-like thing falls from the sky, and like everyone's freaking out except Jazz, who wonders what it would taste like as takoyaki. And so everyone else is like,
Jazz does.
Yeah, and so everyone else is like, we got to destroy this thing, and Jazz is like, I want to eat it. And so yeah, that one's going to be fun to write. I've got to read more Lovecraft before I can write that one to make some more appropriate references. But
that's not going to be the only monster, and we really can't talk about any of the other monsters.
Some of it's spoilery,
right? And that's why we can't talk about the other monsters that will be in that book that we'll be working on the designs for together, because there's too many spoilers. We can't talk about.
They're not all going to be epic stories. Like some of the Monster Punk stories are just inspired by random nerd junk that I'm interested in. For example, I recently started playing Untitled Goose Game, like 3 years behind everyone else, and I kind of want to write an Untitled Goose Game inspired book, because the thing is, geese, like natural geese from our world, are terrifying. Like, they don't even have to be monstrous. They're horrifying things. And I have this. I've actually outlined part of it already. I have this concept of just a regular goose getting falling through the skies.
Have I mentioned how Heather's mind just goes in all these different directions simultaneously? And
anyway, a regular goose falls from the skies, but it manages to get a hold of some of their magical gems and whatnot. And so you got this magically superpowered goose running around, just causing chaos, and the monster hunters have to stop this regular goose. But it's like geese terrify me. Like, okay, when I was in college, I was briefly in art school, and at the college I was at, the art building was like separated off from the rest of the campus, and there was this really, really pleasant, like grassy area and stream, which would have been excellent for drawing if it didn't attract all the freaking geese in the entire state. And so there would, every single time I left class, there would just be this flock of geese just running around the sidewalk. And we literally, like, I was so glad I had 2 portfolios to carry with me, because I'd have to hunker down and run because they'd come after me as I was trying to walk down the sidewalk to my next class. It was terrifying. And then there was one time we were at a convention, and there was just these two little geese hanging out next to the hotel door, and they'd hiss at everything, and one of them chased me. I think I yelled at it, and it chased me more, and it was just geese terrify me. But and so I think they're perfect for a Monster Punk story. But yeah, oh, we're getting some Waffle Day appreciation. Yes. The Waffle Day scene was fun. I love it. It was inspired by my college's Waffle Day, which was equally as insane. I went to a women's college, and every Friday we had Waffle Day, and we would storm the cafeteria. It was violent. But, all right. Well, it looks like we are actually just a little over an hour. So, wow, we talked a lot. I guess the Benadryl wore off. Good.
Yeah, I feel less drowsy than when we started, though I feel itchier.
Oh, no. Oh, well. We hope this is a laundry allergy. We want it to go away. Anyway, well, thank you for joining us, everybody. I'm going to post the contest link in again, so make sure that if you want to try to enter for signed copies of where's the camera? If you want to try to win signed copies of Excess, make sure you go to Google and fill out that form. And also, again, if you've already bought Excess, there's a space on the form for you to put in your Amazon confirmation number. So that will enter you to win copies of both The Wizard's Way and
over here.
Okay. And Bane of the Dead. So you get to sample a little more of some of our writing. Those of you who are audiobook fans, I'm actually proofing the Excess audiobook right now. And it should release sometime in January. I know the narrator's sound engineer, I think, is off on Christmas vacation, as he should be on Christmas. But so there's going to be a little bit of a delay, but that's coming out too. And thank you for those of you who have already read the books and have been telling your friends about them and have been writing reviews on them. Like, so this launch would not have been nearly as big a success if we hadn't had you guys just telling everybody about it. So thank you so much. We love you. And I believe that's it.
Yep.
You want to say bye, Nova?
She hasn't moved in like...
She's out. We're not going to disturb her.
An hour.
She's grumpy. But anyway, thank you again, you guys. And we will see you at the next launch.